I think it's just going to get weirder and weirder and weirder, and finally it's going to be so weird that people are going to have to talk about how weird it is. Eventually people are going to say, what the hell is going on? It's not enough to say it's nuts. You have to explain why it's so nuts. The invention of artificial life, the cloning of human beings, possible contact with extraterrestrials, the systems which are in place to keep the world sane are utterly inadequate to the forces that have been unleashed.
Welcome back to Forbidden Knowledge News. I'm your host, Chris Matthew. Today my guest is Lindsey Scharmyn. Be sure and check out my films if you haven't already. If you have, go watch them again. Occult Louisiana is on Tubi, Roku, Apple, and a few more. Doors of Perception on Amazon Prime, and a brand new streamer called Relay. We're hoping for Doors of Perception to be available on Tubi very soon. We are booking guests for March. If you have suggestions or you'd like to be a guest, email me forbiddenknowledgenews@gmail.com. Today I want to welcome back to the show Lindsey Scharmyn. She is host of Rogueways podcast, author, educator, and national board certified teacher with a master's in teaching. She is also a spiritualist and experiencer of other realms via astral travel, dream walking, visions, and interaction with other dimensional entities. Lindsey, welcome back. How you doing?
So good, Chris. It's fantastic to be back here with you and your fabulous audience. How are you?
Excellent, and it is great to have you back. Today we're going to once again take a deep dive into the metaphysical waters, discuss some of your past life memories with an archangel. We'll also get into dream walking, lucid dreaming, astral travel, all some of our favorite things here to discuss. You also teach a class about dream walking, which we'll let the audience know about and how to attend. Before we get to any of that, remind the audience a little bit about yourself and how they can find out more.
Yeah, thank you. I'm a spiritual healer and teacher, a show host and author, and you can find everything I do at roguesoul.org, including the class you mentioned. It's also cool on my Substack. I write my articles. My books you can get on the site, but if you want to read different articles and different reviews of things and different books that I've read that I've sort of condensed down for people to some choice quotes and presses, philosophical stuff, all that, that's on my Substack, rogueways.substack.com. And I also do channeled messages there from most recently Archangel, which is, why we're talking about this past life encounter with this Archangel, and also a life experience in this current life with this Archangel. So that's there on Substack. Anybody can get access to those. It's cool to subscribe at the free level. I love that because there's plenty of content there for everyone, health and wellness, all this sort of stuff. But if you do a paid subscription on Substack, then you get access to like the channeled messages and those sorts of things. So, and including the entire archive of them, which I don't even know now when I have it. So I write it on Substack and then I like copy paste it into my, document so that I have it just in case Substack deleted me forever somehow. Right. And so I've got my sort of backup, and it's like hundreds of pages of 8.5 by 11 point font. So there's a lot of channeled message there. It hasn't been published in a book yet. And someday I'm going to, but for now, my other channeled books are available and then on the Substack. So hopefully people go become a paid subscriber there if they're into channeled messages.
Well, right on. Before we get into this, how do you feel about the state of things, society, the awareness level of people, the division? If we were to believe what social media and the news is portraying, then we are completely divided. We hate each other. There's nothing but chaos in the streets. You shouldn't even go outside. But in reality, I go outside and I don't see any of that stuff. Most of the people I talk to are pretty aware of things, and many, many more are starting to not participate in the anti-human BS. How do you see things?
Yeah. I like that description, the anti-human BS. It's very true. It's, if we want to just get like straight down to numbers, if you want to look at the people who are like out in the streets, like punching ice in the face, like dyed hair and septum rings and just freaking out constantly about anything that happens, whether we agree with some of that or not or whatever, like that extreme that's maximum going to be 10% of the population. Just if you look at like a standard distribution model of people, that's no more than 10%, probably a lot less actually. But let's just give it like the extra, sauce. We'll say 10% of people are that extreme far left, or worse, they want to go like shoot up government buildings and have a bloody revolution. Then on the other end, you've got the people who are like, law and order, election integrity, whatever. I don't know. Maybe they're extreme in that they want to like round up the other people and put them in camps or something. Who knows? Right. But we've got maybe extreme on that side. And that's going to be no more than 10% of people. And again, probably a lot less, just like being very generous, 10% of people. So if you walk out even in the middle of Minneapolis, if you're going to walk out on the street, you're going to find at least 8 out of 10 people aren't insane, aren't emotionally freaking out constantly about everything they can think of, and are relatively just like you. And maybe they have slightly different views of any of the things that we just mentioned, but relatively they're going to have a lot more in common with you and what they want for life and society and the world and their family and themselves. Just like you, right? Everything you want, they want too. And most of the things you think, they think too. And the differences would be so slight. And I also go back to, I say this to people. I was talking to someone downtown and I don't know them, and we were just happening to strike up a conversation and they're like, I just feel like everyone's so divided and everything's so, dark, and how are we going to get past this? And I was like, well, you and I don't know each other's politics, right? And we're here having a nice conversation. And if you had fallen down, I'd help you get up. And if you, drop something, I'd pick it up for you and you would help me too. And you wouldn't ask me first what I believe or who I voted for, whether I vote or not, or any of that. And nobody really does, because that's not rational, actually. And it's not just not polite. It's like not rational to care what someone else thinks about something, right? On the broad spectrum, you're like, yeah, I do care. I want things to be like this, or I think we should do that, or here's the policy I would like. And so you do what you can to head that way in society. But like person to person, that's never been what's important. And I think most people know that at some level, right? And so these forces, like the media and whoever else and the different factions of the warring elite, they really want us to choose a side and then like fight for it. And I was just talking about this, on the Winning Report on Rogue Soul this week, that they would love for you to do their dirty work for them. They would love for you to go out in the streets and start shooting each other. They would love for you to cause chaos so they can get away with some other scheme and plot. They don't mind wasting your life on this, but you're never going to see them out here doing any of that. It's because they know that A, it's not going to actually change anything for them, and B, it's their blood on the line. No, they're not going to do that. They'll put your blood on the line, but not their blood on the line. So whenever we're fighting each other, we're doing their work for them, right? And you can disagree all you want, and that's great. Debate and conversation and disagreeing, like that's fantastic, good, do it. But if you get down to the point where you think, certain people should be put in concentration camps or, right, like carted off or shot for believing something, or if you're going to physically attack someone for what they're wearing, or like a patch or a hat that they have on or something, now you're doing their work for them. And that's the only time where it would get dangerous or it would actually matter. The rest of it is this really extreme illusion that people have a harder time seeing through sometimes, that's presented to us by the various media outlets. And they're doing the work of this, again, the warring global elite. They're doing their dirty work for them. And if we play along, then we're suckers.
Yeah. One thing that's manifested in my life that is actually beneficial is because of all the AI fakery and nonsense on social media. I no longer spend any time scrolling on there. Not like I spent that much time before. If it was 20, 30 minutes, now it's just post my show on there and get off, because there's nothing there. There's nothing beneficial. There's no good information. And I had no idea how much anxiety that shit was causing me just scrolling and seeing the nonsense. Now that I don't, it's not there anymore. So there is something to where you put your focus, how you're perceiving things. And I think we just need to start shifting that focus inward instead of towards all the BS.
Yeah, or just to our immediate life too, instead of like this imaginary life on a screen. It's not just the stuff that is shown to you that may or may not be actually happening in the world that stresses you out or gets you concerned, or that someone's coming and like attacking you because you thought a thing online or whatever, and like that whole thing, that stuff's going to cause you some emotional perhaps. But it's also that they use these devices to affect us emotionally, and they've admitted it many years ago. So if they were back then already affecting our emotions, Facebook came out and said, yeah, we're experimenting on you to see if we can get you to feel happy or sad or angry or whatever. And if they said that years ago, what do you think they're doing now? It's always going to progress and get better and better, whatever level of effect they have. So if you're not really aware while using these devices, you're again being used as a pawn. It's not just because they're trying to sell you something, that too, right? They'll be like, oh, and here's this product that we think that you were just thinking about. We just read your mind, and here's this thing we think you want, right? But it's also like they're making you angry about something or getting you to be more divided and on one side or another. They're only showing you the stuff that they think will reinforce the perspective you're most likely to take in a radical stance. Right. So I can look and I can see they've decided that I'm a Republican, even though I'm not. And I think it's because I have a lot of like Second Amendment and, ultimate freedom, more like maybe a libertarian than anything if they were going to have to classify me. And so they show me all the stuff that like the Republicans say about an event and right. And like get me to try to be really excited about that side of things. And if I'm not very careful and I don't go looking for the sort of other side, the other perspective, some other view of what might have happened, I'll never see it, right? And if I'm not very, very careful about that, that'll happen. And that's true of everyone. But I don't know that maybe more than 10 to 15% of people even know that. So they just think what they're seeing is just the whole truth, right? It's like, no. They've picked your pocket. They've picked your side. They've pegged you and they're trying to push you as far in that direction as they can. And they're only showing you things that reinforce that. And you have to try pretty hard to break out of it. I remember doing this experiment again, maybe almost 10 years ago now, of having people just Google search something from a computer that had been, already used by somebody for how long. And so it had already sort of learned what that person wants. You switch them, they can't find the results that they could find in their own computer. So if they'd been pegged as right or left, and then they switch computers, they can't find their stuff that they had just found on their other computer. And that's just a Google search, right? And that was back then. Now we are like way more immersed in the social media algorithm. It's so easy for them to just keep you in a tiny bubble and make you believe that this is what's happening in the world and that that's what matters. And if you can step out of that, like you said, I walk outside, I don't see any nuclear bombs falling or Ukrainians or, Russians or Chinese or anything. I don't see Maduro and I don't see anybody who's fighting ICE, and like nothing's happening out there. There's just some birds and some trees and some nice sun. So yeah, we have to be really aware of how they're controlling us on every level, from the wavelengths to the emotions to like what we're seeing and what we're thinking about it. And it's pretty nefarious.
Yeah. So as it relates to your past life memories with this Archangel, how did you start to retrieve that?
It's interesting because my past life memories that I have retrieved, I shouldn't say never, because at this point now there's one time where I did actually try, but the rest of my life, these past life memories would just come. And I didn't, in fact, the first few times I had past life memories return, I didn't know that that's what was happening. It was very vivid. It was as though I were a different person in a different time. I was living it first person, and then I'd come out of it and I'd be like, well, that was a really weird like dream or vision or daydream, depending on what time of day it was happening.
So this would just happen in the middle of the day when you were conscious?
Sometimes. Yeah, if I'm sitting there, because I didn't realize for a long time that I was meditating.
Okay.
as well. So I was a very introverted child. And I spent a lot of time internally, and I would go sit like in a tree, for example, and I would just daydream away, but I didn't realize that I was actually meditating, and I was often receiving information and communicating with other intelligences. And I just, who can know that if you're 6 or 7, like how would you know? I didn't have a background in any of this. By the time my first astral travel, I had no idea that was even a thing. I just thought that I had a crazy vivid dream, even more vivid than the vivid dreams I already had, right? And that it felt like real life somehow and was just intense. And all sorts of these things would just happen to me and I wouldn't know. And so it took me a long time in life to understand what was even ever happening to me, from really deep meditations to astral travels and more. And so slowly over time, I kind of figured it out. It was pre-internet. I didn't have people in my life who were woo-woo. Like, there was just no way for me to know what any of this stuff was. I remember I started seeing auras, and I just was like, oh, I'm insane now. Everyone glows. Like, I guess I'm crazy. But it was weird because I also noticed, like, everyone glows differently. And, when they're angry, it's a different glow than when they're peaceful. And the colors correlate to, like, their emotions. And I was just like, well, that's really weird that I can not only, like, be insane, but also that it makes sense, that it's coherent. So finally someone's like, oh, you're seeing auras. And I was like, what's an aura? Like, what do you mean? And so it took me a long time to figure out what that was. So it's like that. So my first past life memory that I recalled was in a dream. So it was at night, but it was the same sort of astral travel-like experience where it was way too vivid and way too specific, and like I was this other person. And a lot of times when we're dreaming, we are ourselves. Even if we're a slightly different version of ourselves, we're aware that we're us in this life. And if not, we're sometimes third person watching ourselves, but it's still us in this life. And then in this experience, I was a totally different person in a totally different time. I knew everything about myself in that time. I had no concept of Lindsey at all. I had no concept outside of this life. And this was sort of Western, 1840s maybe time. And then the part of my life I was reliving was right at the point where I was murdered by my husband. And so I got to live being murdered, which is horrible, by the way. And so when I came out of that, I had to go through the trauma of.
Did you seemingly have physical sensations? Wow.
Yes. Yeah. Yeah. I felt the fear of it. It was crazy too, because I remember sitting there thinking, like, is he going to finally do something? Is he going to finally, like, hit me or hurt me? Or I knew he was capable and that he had motive to murder me, or maybe just, like, take me away somewhere and, like, leave me there. So, I just knew something horrible could happen and might happen, and that he was capable of it. I could sense about him that, like, he had discovered, essentially, I was cheating on him. And he had discovered that, and I knew that, but I didn't know it. He hadn't said it yet, but I could tell. And it was a really tense moment. I was thinking about my lover and how I was never going to see him again. And I kind of knew that he was nearby too, and that he was going to discover as soon as this murder was about to happen, that he would know, and that his life would be in tragedy. And I was having all these thoughts, and my life was sort of flashing before my eyes. And then he came out with it and slit my throat, and I bled out. Oh, yeah.
That's awful.
And so I woke up just really deep in that. I had, like, my throat hurt, my neck hurt. I was, like, holding it as though blood were coming out. It was too real. And I was like, well, that was crazy, right? Again, I think I was maybe 16 or so. I don't know exactly, somewhere in my late teen years. And I just thought it was an intense dream. Eventually, if I shared it with somebody years later, and they were like, I think that was a past life you had. And I was like, oh, I didn't know we had past lives, but as soon as they said it, I was like, I knew it, because I had knew it before then. I was like, that was me somehow. I was that person somehow, but why? And in my head, I was like, maybe I just kind of time traveled a little and, like, experienced someone else doing something. But I was like, but why would I choose that person experiencing that thing? For what reason? And I was kind of like, maybe it was an ancestor of mine. But once this person said, oh, it's a past life, I was like, oh yeah, it is a past life. We must have past lives. It actually makes perfect sense. And so many other things made sense too. And it just clicked. I had all these throat issues, and it made sense. I had this trauma in my throat, and so many different things I couldn't even explain made sense. People in my life who are close to me, who I realized were that husband in that life, and then our relationship suddenly made sense. And I was like, oh, everything makes way too much sense. So these memories would often come back to me just randomly, right? And now I know too, it's not actually random. They come back because that's something that you are healing in the moment, or something that you needed to understand about this current life that connects to what you experienced in that life, or, there's reasons why past life memories return when they do. Um, and I didn't know that at the time either. So I went through, life, and I've experienced now many past lives coming back to me, sometimes in deep meditation, sometimes in, dream states, and sometimes in just waking life as I'm just walking around, and suddenly I'll just get hit with like, oh, wow, there's another one. So someone asked me not that long ago, like, how many past lives have you remembered at this point? And I actually have to keep a list because I forget some of them because there's so many. So I'm at like 12 or 13 at this point. And they all make perfect sense. Wow. They all make way too much sense.
When you're experiencing these in waking life, do you have to lay down? Do you have to close your eyes? Is it completely immersive and you're out of this experience?
Sometimes, and sometimes it's pretty light. Like, it's just the knowing just comes back, and I'm just like, oh, there's a time and a place, and usually a gender, a sex, or whatever, and then some idea of like what I was doing. And then if I want to explore it more, if it comes back like that and it's very sort of light like that, and I just know, it's just sort of like remembering. It's sort of like if you're sitting there and you're like, oh yeah, I remember that birthday where that happened. I haven't thought about that in so long. Like, it's kind of that flavor. If it's like that, I can then go into a deeper meditation and explore it more and get a little bit more out of it. At this point in my life, I'm able to do that. And I help other people do it too. This is actually not too many years ago, my guides were like, hey, you need to help other people remember their past lives. And I was like, oh, okay. I don't know how to do that. And they're like, you do, actually. You can use tarot to do it. And I was like, that's really weird. I've never heard of that. And they're like, that's because nobody does it and it doesn't exist. And I'm like, oh, okay. So how would you like me to do that? And they showed me a specific layout and how to do it. And I started doing it. And now I help other people remember their past lives. So
right on.
I like it better. I think it's better if you remember on your own, right? I think people have a deeper experience of it. But sometimes it's so helpful to have this little nudge of like a past life reading. And there's plenty of people who do other types of past life readings. And some of those are more immersive, like meditative, hypnotic, regression, that sort of way. Any of them could be good, especially if your goal is healing and you're trying to understand your current life, and you're trying to heal some pattern or some issue or trauma, because it's going to bring up trauma for sure. The Archangel Gabriel past life also came back. Yeah, I think it was also in a dream. I think it was also at night, rather, when I was out traveling. And I had just all of a sudden, I was a little girl. I was maybe 5 or 6. I was very young. I was very playful. I was precocious. I could see my father, and he was what I now know is like a Mayan, chief, I'm going to say, or a shaman, perhaps, a spiritual and political leader, whatever we would call that at that time. And I loved him and adored him, and he was very powerful, but also a very good person, a very noble and upright leader. And I just adored him. And I was joking around, and I snuck under like a table that we had nearby to what was the door of our domicile. And very different setting, obviously, way back then. Seemingly like mud and mud brick or stone, and lots of just handmade, objects. And I think we were wealthy and rich, so there was a lot of these objects, even though it was a relatively smaller space. Anyways, I was hiding under this table, and I thought it was hilarious. I was like, I'm going to jump out at him. And what's also funny is another part of me knew that, like, just like any parent does, he knew I was hiding under the table, but he was pretending not to know so that I could, like, jump out and scare him, and we could be playful or whatever. And so I was waiting, and it was like really exciting for me that I was about to do that and jump out at him. But then there was a knock or some sort of summoning to like the doorway. And he, instead of, coming towards me to let me jump out at him, went to the door, and he opened the door. And on the other side of the door was this giant being. And I was instantly like, what the hell is that? Because it was I thought my dad was huge, right? Like, I thought the people I knew were big, some of them, but this was like a giant. It was a huge person. And I started to see, and now I know that I was seeing at that age with my spiritual eye, right, or my inner eye, just like I see auras now. I was starting to see him sort of glow, and I was starting to see sort of like wings. And I was like, what is this guy? And I was fascinated. My father's talking to him. I'm not listening to what they're saying. I'm just like enamored with this being staring at him. And he looks at me and he winks. And I was like, because I'm hidden behind, like, I'm barely peeking out behind whatever's covering me underneath this desk. But he knows I'm there. And so I'm like, oh, he knows I'm here. And it kind of scared me. And I kind of got this feeling too from him, like he would kill anything in a second. Like he was just so powerful. And that kind of scared me too. The wink was playful. He was a nice guy in a way, but he was also just exceptionally powerful and so big. And then the glowing stuff. And I was just like kind of terrified, super enamored, like kind of excited that he knew I was there and winked, all these feelings and emotions. And then he hands my father like a letter. The letter is physical, but it also, and even from there, I could see there's writing on it, which is what my father's reading, but also it's glowing too. And there's a different message that's like glowing beyond the physical writing, right? So there's two messages there. There's one that you could read no matter who you are. And then there's like a spiritual message in there that you could only read if you're the right person, maybe, or you've got the right skills, right? Or you're spiritual or shamanic, or using your spiritual eyes, your inner eyes, your third eye, or something. And I could tell that too. And he kind of looked, the being kind of looked at me as though to be surprised that I knew at that age that the letter had both of these messages embedded in them, and kind of what was going on. And he kind of looked at me like, huh. And then he kind of seemed to like nod and go, oh, like, and I don't know exactly what that meant. It was some sort of acknowledgement of like, oh, she knows, or oh, she can see, or, not that surprised actually now that I realize, or something, right? Like that was going through his mind seemingly. And yeah, he looked, I saw like an armor. I'm still not sure if that was like a spiritual thing or if it was an actual armor, and he's a physical being, and it's kind of unclear, what he is, but he's definitely, I'm starting to notice like war torn. And I get this sense he's like battle weary. And I was like, oh, and then I started to feel almost sad for him. Like he had been fighting forever, right? For longer than humans could conceive, longer than anybody would understand, and more, deeply embattled than we could ever imagine, even in whatever battles or skirmishes we might have as people. And I just understood there was something about him that was far beyond human. And I didn't have the words for that. I was just like a little kid, but I just kind of could sense all of that.
Yeah.
And then the rest of the past life is horrible. Whatever my father had been told by this being, which I later understood was Archangel Gabriel, but I did not understand that for a while. But whatever he had said to him, or whatever the message contained, was essentially like telling my father what was about to happen and getting my father spiritually ready for it. My father changed after that, and it was a very short period of time in which he was very serious and kind of sad, and was saying things to me that I, as Lindsey or as an older person, could have looked back and said, oh, he knew he was going to die. He was kind of preparing me to like live without him. But I didn't get that as a kid. I just knew things were serious. Things had changed. Something in the message had told him, and then all of a sudden this new spiritual / political leader came into town, and he was more powerful than my father, and we were supposed to listen to him. And he had decided, for whatever reason, that something was my father's fault, and that my father had to be sacrificed or killed in order to make up for this failure of his, whatever it was. I don't know if it was crops or something. I was young. But whatever people had been complaining about for a little while, like this guy was like, you're the problem. We need to sacrifice you. We need to kill you. And not just in the normal way, I found out, because my father was then going to be sacrificed, and we didn't get to really say goodbye to him or really like have any fanfare or trial or, nothing. It just was like, oh, it's decreed and now it's going to be done. And he's killed, and all the people of the village are made to then eat a piece of him. Yeah. And by all the people in the village, I mean me too. And I was sitting there. Yeah. And I had to watch it all happen. And then I also had to sit there, and I knew that I could run away and not eat a piece of him, but something like him or some sort of spiritual guidance was saying, don't do that, because then they'll kill you too. And there's something that you're supposed to do in this life. So stay alive, and, you'll be protected, or you'll be like, the karma of this will not touch you. Grace will come through to protect that. And even as a child, I just knew that I had to do it. So I had to live through eating a piece of my father, which is probably the grossest thing I can imagine. Sorry, everyone. You can edit that out if you think it's too much. Pretty traumatized. I tell people this. I'm like, I've never had a past life memory that wasn't horribly traumatizing. Like, and for a while I was like, why are all past life memories traumatizing? And I realize it's because that's what we have left to heal, right? It's the stuff that we haven't yet healed that is coming back. The rest of it, we've dealt with, we've processed. We don't need to remember it necessarily. Actually, a psychic came to me, and I didn't ask them for this message, but they said, I need to tell you that not all your lives are horrible. A lot of your past lives were actually good. Those just aren't the ones that you need to remember, and so you don't. But don't imagine that all your lives were really, really bad. And I was like, okay, thank you for that, because I do sit here and wonder, like, why is this so dark? But yeah, it was horrible. We were then destitute. My family went from being one of the top families to like nothing. We didn't have clothes or food or home. My mother was taken away for some reason that I didn't understand. I didn't get to see her or live with her anymore. My older sister took care of me, and we were essentially sort of trash. We were like trash people. Nobody would really talk to us or interact with us. And, we had been disgraced. So that was where my memory ended. I didn't see the rest of that life or what happened. Some bits of it have come back and other times, but that was the life. And so, I didn't know, like I said, that was Archangel Gabriel. He always stood out in my mind from that memory. Aside from the horrible trauma, the other thing that stood out was this man who had come that was more than a man and larger than men, and, glowing and all of that stuff. And a person asked me at a dinner party, and I think they asked, like, I don't remember the question that got us all talking about this, but I shared that experience, and he like slammed his fist down. I was like maybe 20 or something when I'm sharing this, and he's, maybe 50 or 60 or something, and he slams his fist down. He says, "God damn it, Rod!" I was like, whoa, that's a weird reaction to this past life / dream memory, right? And he says, "I've been working my whole life to contact the archangels, and you just meet Gabriel and you don't even know who he is." And I was like, oh, was that Gabriel? Because I don't know the archangels, and that's not in my background, and I don't study these things, and so I didn't know anything about it. But once he said it, I just kind of knew. And I was like, well, how do you know that that's Gabriel? And he's like, he's a general, and he's a messenger, and that's what he looks like. Because I could describe his hair and his like whatever and his features, and he's like, that's Gabriel. And I sort of, asked my own like guidance, like, was that Gabriel? And I was like, yeah, that's Gabriel. You guys know, you guys are old friends. And I was like, oh, okay.
Wow.
So that was my first experience. I've only met him another time in life. I've had plenty of interactions with him from the spiritual connection, right? Through channeling or connecting on that level.
Mm-hmm.
Anybody can connect with any spiritual being if they choose to. And so we've talked. In fact, yesterday I published on my Substack a channeled message from Archangel Gabriel. So, you could count that as another time. But in this current life as Lindsey on Earth, I also interacted with Gabriel, which was another really strange experience. If you want to hear about it,
let's do it.
So I was at one of those spiritual fairs, which, again, I have a lot of judgment of, but I had my own sort of spiritual experience at one against my will. I didn't want to be at this event anyway, and then all these things happened that were amazing, and that's another story. But later in my life, I ended up being a reader, sometimes a psychic or a reader at these spiritual fairs. And then sometimes I have a booth and I'm selling my orgone and my books and doing, readings and stuff. And so I've actually been at the spiritual fairs and given, talks and lectures at them and all that stuff. So I went from hating them and judging them to like doing them. And at one of those, I was, there's tons of people at these things. There's, I don't know, thousands, right? And so this one I was doing in Denver is just big, lots of people, lots of activity. It's kind of all day you're just go, 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 talking to people, like selling things, doing readings, whatever. And all of a sudden I look down this long corridor that I'm, at the sort of one end of, and I just see this guy, and he's like beelining straight for me, not looking away and just staring at me. And I'm like, wow, that guy's intense. And then I see his aura, and it's just bright white/yellow, which is not something you see. And I was like, oh, that's like a really high level person staring at me and just walking down the aisle straight at me. People just seem to like not look at him, but just kind of move out of his way as he's just staring at me and moving right towards me. And I'm noticing that. I'm like, that's a powerful aura. People like both aren't noticing you, but also just happening to move out of your way. So you've got this clear path, right? So I was like, who is that? Like, that's an intense, and they're clearly coming straight for me for some reason, which has happened before at spiritual fairs, by the way. So I'm not like scared. I'm just like aware that we're supposed to talk, we're supposed to connect. And it hasn't been that intense the other times. And the person coming for me like hasn't had that aura, but he was also a huge guy. And he also, he towered above everyone. And he also had the same hair. But I didn't notice that specifically at the moment. I was just thinking, here's a guy, he's got, a message, we're supposed to connect or whatever. His aura is crazy awesome, and we'll see what happens. And so he gets to me, and he's just like cuts to the, like, he's like no nonsense. He's the least flowery sort of bullshit, filler sort of energy that you could ever have. And he just says, God wants to know if you want to end this all or just, in fire and burn it to the ground or see what happens. And I was like, what? Huh. And he's like, God wants to know. What do you want to do? Do you want to see what happens? Do you want to burn it all to the ground, end this experiment, or what? What do you want to do? I was like, what, with like the world? He's like, yeah. And I was like, God wants to know? And he's like, yeah. And I was like, I want whatever God wants, right? Like, what do you mean? What does God want? If God is God, what would God want?
Yeah.
He's like, oh, God already knows what God wants. God wants to know what you want. And I was like, me? He's like, yeah, what do you want? And I was like, I guess I want to see what happens. He's like, okay. And then he just leaves. And I was like, whoa. He said, I'm Archangel. Oh, at some point in there, he said, I'm Archangel Gabriel. And I was like, huh. Because I'm like, no, you're not.
So he appeared in a physical manner.
Oh yeah, this was like a physical dude. Weirdest.
And you said no one else was really noticing him either?
Nobody else was really noticing him, but I didn't really think too much about that until after. But as he was walking, it was very clear. No one was like staring at how big he was. No one was seeing that aura I was seeing. Like, no one was really paying attention to him. And what was weird is I can't like nail down exactly what he was wearing.
Okay, I was just about to ask you.
So in my mind, he's like carrying a bunch of packages for some reason, and he's almost wearing like just wrappings of fabric, like not like a mummy, but more like a I don't know, like a Greek, just like wearing sheets and stuff. But like in reality, I don't think that's what he's seeing. I don't know if he even had like a specific outfit or if it was just kind of like, what do you need to see? Right. What do you need to see? And it's sort of going to vibe with like his actual energy, which is, the messenger. He delivers things to people and also fights battles. And So yeah, it was really until he said that again, at some point in that conversation, he just said very quickly, like, oh, I'm Archangel Gabriel. God wants to know, And I'm like, what? I'm just like, why would God want to ask me if the world should end or if it should continue? Like
any thoughts behind that?
So
after mulling it over for a while,
I honestly am like, what are you really? I think so. This is my best answer. I think it was sort of to like reinforce to me specifically that I chose to be here during this time because I have an exceptional amount of disappointment with the world. And I really get sick of people's shit. And I'm like, come on, you guys, can't you get it together yet? Like, it's not that hard. And like every once in a while I'm like, no, really, bring the meteor and end this all. Like, this is so dumb. Like, why are we still putting up with this? So I wonder if it was more not like God would have actually like, or, you know, any energy would have been like, all right, experiment over, blow up the world. If I had said yes, right? Like, let's end it. I think it was more to be like, look, you chose it, right? Don't you want to be here for this? So maybe get over yourself.
Right.
You know?
I'm sure you've noticed this emerging consensus from many people who are starting their spiritual journey that we're in this archonic soul form prison planet. The beings that are in other realms, that are interdimensional beings, astral beings, supernatural beings, whatever you want to call them, that they're all archons, and we should never reach out to these spiritual beings because they are trying to deceive us. And this entire experience is about providing loosh for the archons. That's such a bleak, horrible perspective. But what would you tell people that are in that?
Is that how weak you think your soul is? Do you think you're just a piece of shit? I mean, you think you're not powerful enough as a soul to do what you want and what you choose? I think it's a cop-out. I think it's an easy way to explain away the hardship of the world instead of taking responsibility for ourselves. I think it's a easy way to ignore the complexities of our psyches and our interactions with each other, and, you know, how to figure that out and how to do it well, how to grow through what's, you know, our own sort of self-imposed limitations. It's a cop-out from all of that to be like, oh, none of this has anything to do with me, and I'm just here against my will, and it's just a soul farm and all my loosh, so I'll just stop trying or thinking or engaging or you know, discovering or growing or doing anything at all, actually. Stop analyzing, stop thinking about it. I just get a free check, free ride, don't have to worry about any of that. I think it's a giant cop-out, and it's very cowardly and weak. And I think, like, to tell yourself that you are a weak, that your soul is such that it could be trapped by something, that's such a negative, you know, we talk about like negative self-talk and like not being dark and not telling yourself things that aren't true about yourself and not limiting yourself. That is the darkest self-talk you could ever choose to reinforce. It's so, so dark. I'll also say, people have said like, well, how do you know? How do you know? Well, I personally know because I've been out and beyond what people think is the soul trap, and I have seen the entire universe, and I've been to its center, and I've met God, and I've met Jesus, and I've met Buddha, and I've met all of these beings, and I understand exactly what we're doing here, and it's not that. So I don't have to wonder, but I feel really sad that all the people who are trying to figure it out and trying to wonder, and then they're being, you know, exposed to this version of reality. And it's a lot like the old dogmatic, fundamentalist, Gnostic viewpoint that we're trapped in flesh, and that Yaldabaoth is the god of this world that's just torturing us, and that we don't have a choice in it. And I'll say, like, even if there's a Yaldabaoth, you're still stronger than him. So get over it.
Right on. I love that. Is there any other experiences with Archangel Gabriel that you wanted to mention before we move on to dreaming?
Well, I'll just say that I did do that channeled message from him yesterday. So if people want to read that, it's on the Substack, and it has to do with, you know, kind of similarly, but on the other side of things, where people think that, you know, we're here in duality and there's negativity and there's evil, but if we just don't look at it, don't think about it, don't acknowledge it, and are never negative, then we'll transcend duality. And so I was asking him, because he's really funny. He's not funny in this channel message, actually. He's very no nonsense, and he's very much like, hey, get your shit together. Like, he's not a friendly, soft, cuddly kind of guy. And so the message is kind of like that too. So if you're interested to read that, it's there.
Right on.
But yeah, let's talk about dreaming.
Tell us about dream walking. I think we may have briefly discussed this on a previous show, but let's revisit it and get some more insights into what is happening here.
Yeah, well, I love this. So I teach a lot of different spiritual classes of how to be in your spiritual channel, how to connect with higher beings. And even if you never wanted to connect with like Gabriel or other beings because you wonder if some of them are negative or deceitful or whatever, you could also just connect to your own higher self. So, you can do any of these things without connecting to any of those beings, and just be in, connection with yourself. So that's one thing that I do, no matter if I'm teaching, sound healing, or I'm teaching people how to do spiritual channeling or any of those sorts of things. It can just be with your higher self. So anybody can do these things. That's why I teach it. It's not for people who are special. Everybody's actually special, just like Mr. Rogers said. But we all have this connection. It's part of our human technology. It's what we came in with. Most of us have had it exceptionally dampened, turned off, and that's very intentional by the dark, beings and forces. Our pineal gland has been intentionally calcified. We've been intentionally distracted. We've been intentionally led into our own worst, psychological delusions and emotional chaos and all of that stuff. But we can all clear all of that and get back into this spiritual connection that 100% of people have. So I like to teach all that stuff. And dream walking is one of my favorites to teach because it's so accessible. Like, some people just can't believe that they can do sound healing or that they can be a spiritual channeler or any of those things. So they just can't really take those classes because they just don't see themselves that way. But I think everybody can see themselves as someone who dreams. And I actually, even though there's, people who say they don't dream, and I say, no, even you can take the dream walking class and dream, because there's ways to get yourself to dream, or really what it is to remember your dreams, because there is no one who doesn't dream. It's not actually real. You just don't remember your dreams if you're one of the people who don't remember your dreams. So I've had people take it who don't dream, and by the end of the class, they're dreaming and remembering it. So if you want to, you could even do that. So I feel like it's such an accessible class. That's why I like to teach it. Everybody who's ever taken it has success. There's nobody who doesn't. So, the things that we learn in the class are how to dream better and more and recall them more, but also then we get into how to use your dreams as a spiritual channel, right? So if you feel like you can't channel, if you feel like you don't want to connect with certain beings, or if you feel like whatever, you can still use your dreams to get answers to any question you've ever had about life, the universe, and everything. You can use your dreams to connect with people who have died and have moved on, have passed on. You can use it to connect with spiritual beings if you choose to do that. You can use your dreams also to time travel or astral travel. You can learn how to lucid dream. And so these are all the sorts of things that I teach in the dream walking class. It's starting actually on Sunday, February 1st. And it's via Zoom, so it doesn't matter where you are in the world. It's very practical. It's very workshop based. So there's some instruction, of course. And then we also have one class a week aside from the instruction that is workshop based. And so we actually get into the dreams, and how to analyze dreams is a big part of the class, which is especially important because when you are using your dreams to connect with other intelligences, you should already be really good at understanding the language of dreams. And I'll say too, what a lot of people, the feedback I get from the people who've taken the class before, what they say is like, well, this is really, analyzing dreams is really different than what I had in like my dream book. And it's like, yeah, because those are very, very, very basic, and they don't cover the entire breadth of like what a dream can do and be. And so learning how to really analyze your dreams is like a big part of what kind of blows people's minds, I think, in this class. So it's really cool that people who take it end up getting messages from people who have passed on. They end up understanding the nature of themselves and their soul and the universe better. They end up being able to have confidence and trust in asking for and receiving answers and messages. And that changes the rest of your life, right? Like, I mean, for the rest of your life after that, you're still able to use these skills far past the class is ending. And in fact, you get better and better and better at it if you keep at it, right? So yeah, I came in, I think, to this life with the skill of dream walking, and I didn't know that's what it was called, of course. I started calling that dream walking because I started to understand that I was moving through various layers of self and consciousness and the universe and actual physical space in the universe and far beyond, Earth out into the universe and all these things. And I just was like, well, what am I supposed to call that? It's some form of traveling. And then I was like, oh, dream walking. And what's interesting is I then learned that that's actually what Aborigines in Australia call moving through dreams and layers of consciousness is dream walking. I was like, well, that's amazing. Yeah. So I didn't steal it, I just resonated with it and that came out. So that's what I call it.
Do you think dreams can be multiple things, as in possibly we are visiting different realities, possibly we're experiencing memories, we're in a realm interacting with other intelligences? Absolutely.
All of the above. There's actually, no difference. There's a concept even when you're doing spiritual exploration in yourself, as you go deeper into, your heart center, if you want to think of it that way. Some people need to think of it as their sort of mind, but you're going deeper into yourself, that you're actually also at the same time going further out into the cosmos. And vice versa. If you were doing a meditation where you're rising up and you're going out into the solar system and then beyond into the Milky Way galaxy and then beyond into the greater universe, you're actually just going deeper into yourself, right? So, people will be like, well, then what is it? Is it that like Jupiter is out there as a physical body and we could technically perhaps someday in some way go there physically? Or is it a spiritual location? Well, it's both. It's both. And it's just like the oldest, sayings from like the hermits, the hermeticists is, as above, so below. It's really, really means as above, so below. It means literally as you go in, you go out, and as you go out, you go in, and everything is a reflection of itself. So, is the center of the universe a physical place? Yes. Is it also the place that happens to be the highest form of consciousness that we could have in the universe? Yes. Right.
Outer space can also be seen as the innerverse and vice versa. It's essentially the same thing that we are accessing.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Right on.
Yeah. And so, when people are like, oh, we're going to go to Mars and we're going to live on Mars, I'm like, why? I mean, like, you can just go to Mars in yourself and you can get everything you need from Mars from that experience, from Mars as a consciousness or Mars as a physical space. And so, I don't know, I'm down if people think that they can get into space physically and they want to get to Mars and that actually happens, like, go for it. But I'm never going to bother. I'm perfectly happy accessing the whole entire universe from right here.
When you think about it like that, there may be some truth to the stories that people claiming to be in the secret space program are talking about. Possibly they're entering a hypnagogic state where they're accessing these realms from within. They are having experiences, but they're not going in a jump room and being shot off to Mars.
Yeah. In fact, I would assume that's what's actually happening if any of those people are telling the truth about their experiences. Yeah. There are devices that Black Ops or whatever, secret agencies have that have to do purely with consciousness or what I would call the spiritual, and that they can induce certain states, that they can get people to astral travel, that they can get people to remote view, and that they can get actionable, actual, verifiable information from those states. And they know that. And so, they've also, I'm sure, long since discovered that you can go anywhere in time and you can interact in time with actual people, so that's another thing that we can do through dream walking or other methods. And so I'm sure that they're all over the place. And I'm also sure, because I've interacted with them on those levels, that there's not only dark agents and dark energies and dark people and dark organizations doing that, but there's light ones too. So I think people get stuck in the like, oh God, the government might have all of this and what are they doing on those levels? And it's like, yeah, but also don't forget that there's people who understand all those technologies and have long before the government got involved, and long before the darkness got involved. And they're also on all those levels doing that sort of work. So
I've heard some interesting things about astral guardians, that very important locations may have someone that is projecting in a dream or the astral realm to essentially protect that, or there may be some kind of entity sanctioned to do that. What do you think about that?
Yes. Yeah, and again, there's good ones and bad ones. So there was a place that I went on the Astral that was definitely a government operation of some sort that I wasn't meant to infiltrate, but I was just watching. I was just meant to see it. And there's others that I've been inside of, and not by my own abilities, but because my guides took me in. And I wouldn't suggest to anyone to go poking around in these places, because actual harm could happen and could come to you. But in this one that I went to, where I wasn't infiltrating, the people, they were humans who were not even, as far as I could tell, conscious of what they were doing, except that they knew they were guarding this place. But they had some sort of helmet, which I could draw for you, which is very strange looking, that, as from what I could see and understand, was what was causing them to be on the Astral, even though their experience of it was they were just guarding something, you know, just like you would like a armory or something. Like, they don't know what they're guarding, and they don't have special spiritual skills. But the helmet somehow placed them in this astral space, and it was purely so that they could alert other, I'll say, like, more skilled or higher up astral warriors if something were to come and approach them to try to get into this place. So the layers of what's actually going on are insane. And this is why I also always come back to whatever we think is happening with our government on the physical 3D reality. Way more stuff's happening far beyond that. And so we can, it doesn't mean not pay attention or don't care. There's definitely things that matter that we can affect on the 3D and the physical. But also just know that you're never gonna have the full story probably until you're dead.
Yeah.
And then maybe you'll see it all perfectly, right? But like here now, it's going to be very limited no matter what level of spiritual expression you've accomplished.
You mentioned that it's possible for harm to come to people that are within these experiences. I was speaking with a guest a few weeks ago. His name's Bush Whisperer. He's a shaman. And he was talking about this meditative experience that he had where he was trapped in this astral realm. There were these shadow beings trying to pull him down to an endless pit. It wasn't until he had a realization that he had to show these beings love before they transmuted into these angelic beings. They lifted him back up, and he emerged from his meditative experience. But he was trapped there for 8 hours in the physical realm and what felt like months in the astral realm.
Yeah. I'll say, that's happened to me as well. It was a different sort of experience, but I was trapped, and it was only like 10 minutes, but it felt like infinity. I actually lost touch with what it even was to be a human while I was trapped in this place. And I lost all ability to conceive of what I was or what I was doing or where I was or what was happening. And it was just infinitely dark. And I won't even say it was scary, because I literally didn't even know what was happening. I luckily was broken free. That's a whole very interesting story too, because it has to do with retrocausality, because the person who freed me from that, I hadn't even met yet and didn't meet for another 5 years. And then they had an experience where they saw me trapped in a space, not knowing who or what I was, and they got me out of it. And I was like, that happened. I remember that happening, and that's crazy, right? That's retrocausality. So they actually travel back in time. So I was freed by someone who I hadn't met yet, who hadn't done that yet, from the future. And thank God, when I came out, the shaman who was in charge of that ceremony was like, I don't know what happened to you or where you went. And I was like, how did you let this happen?
Oh, wow.
Or I was like, oh my God, I didn't even know it could happen, like, how do you? Anyway, that's a whole thing too. And so I'm lucky I got out. And my comment, however, will be to people in general, those entities don't generally make that much effort to do that unless they have a reason to believe you're going to really muck up their plans in the future. So most people aren't going to get attacked, is my point. And I'll also say, if I would have known better at that moment about protection, I would have done better too. You can't actually just be attacked if you have, like even that shaman talking about like feeling that just feeling love is enough to protect you from anything, even whatever you think might be like Yaldabaoth or like Satan or something, like whatever you might imagine to be like the strongest evil or negative being you could imagine. One feeling of love in your heart is enough to crush that thing. So everyone's actually protected. My mistake, I had a bunch in that experience, but my main mistake was just believing this random shaman lady had some sort of, ability to protect me. Yeah. She didn't, right? You have to protect yourself. And so I actually always start with teaching people protection, no matter what I'm teaching, and all of the ways that you can be protected and that are 100% effective 100% of the time, so that if something like that were to happen, which I'll tell you, thousands of people I've worked with, maybe one of them has had an experience like that. So it's very rare in my experience that it even happens, but it's still good to be on sort of just aware that there is danger, but also that you can be protected from it.
I have heard several experiences where people will be in a dream, meditative state, or even state with psychedelics, and they will come across an entity that will warn them, you're not supposed to be here, get out of here, and don't come back. So maybe most people are just getting warnings first.
I think that is a lot of it. A lot of people will get warnings. Sometimes it's something that someone was already actually like connected to in some way and they just didn't know it. And now that they're getting deeper in, it's sort of like taking its chance to see if it can kind of trick you more, get deeply more embedded in your psyche or your consciousness, your field. And so it's sort of, there's some of that. And a lot of these things are a lot closer to what we might call trickster energy than actual dark, horrible, intended beings, but there's a lot of those too. They're definitely out there. And I don't want to really like downplay that exists and the danger of it, but I also don't want people to just walk around feeling scared all the time. So, right. And not because I think like, I don't want people to be scared. I mean, because really there is protection and there always is protection and you always have access to it, no matter who you are, no matter where you are, no matter what you're doing. But yeah, there's definitely beings who just wander around on those planes looking for souls that kind of accidentally end up somewhere so that they can be like, okay, go back to your nursery, baby. You're not grown up yet.
There's so much more to this existence than we could ever know. It's like the more I learn, the more layers pop up, and it's infinite layers to try and peel through. Last few minutes, maybe you could give a few tips on how to have better dreams.
Well, I'll say this, especially if you're telling yourself you don't dream, stop doing that. Right? Because what you believe actually matters and what you tell yourself actually matters. So just start there by saying, of course I dream, and I'm going to remember my dreams. And that's just start there. Wherever you're at, if you're someone, even who, if you feel like, I dream a lot, you could still do that. Of course I dream, and I'm going to remember my dreams, right? And the more you tell yourself that, the more true it will be. You have to act as though, right? And it's like Rumi said, what you start on the path and then the path appears. So you take the step, you tell yourself, of course I dream and I remember my dreams. And that alone will already change things. And, if you're sort of bad at remembering, you can literally put your phone or whatever device, like alarms throughout the day that just say, of course I dream, and I'll remember my dream, right? And you'll just, each time you see it, you'll say it to yourself, and then you'll start to really shift that. And then there's obviously too, like, cut out some of the distraction. The more distraction you have in your life, the less presence you have in general, the less presence you're going to have in the other realms. So if you're actively bringing yourself back to yourself, being mindful, not being in distraction, not just mindlessly daydreaming all the time or whatever, the more often you're present and conscious in any level of self, the more present and conscious you are in every level of self.
Right on. Lindsey, this was fascinating. Before you go, let everyone know how they can sign up for your class, get a hold of all your content, all the good stuff.
Yeah, go to roguesoul.org. The class is in the shop. So if you go to the shop and you look down past the Oregon Lotus votives, you'll see the Dream Walking class. There might still be a coupon code available that gives you $222 off the class. So if you want to use the code Dream Warrior, you can get that discount and join us. We start on Sunday, February 1st. Every Sunday evening, we're going to meet. It is on Zoom. If you can't make it to some of the classes, they're all recorded. They're all available to you for a couple weeks, even after the class ends. So you can always go back to them, take more notes, get back into the content. And then we're also going to meet once a week. For now, we're doing Saturdays, but if the group decides there's a better time that we can all meet, we might do another day. And that's going to be on Saturday afternoon so that we can actually do the dream analysis and the workshopping. So it's twice a week. And it's for the month of February. And I'd love to have anyone join us. So you go to the shop on roguesoul.org and sign up.
Awesome. Lindsey, thank you so much. Of course, we'll be doing this again. Until next time, everyone, have an excellent evening. We'll talk again tomorrow. Hello, friends. I am so excited to tell you about Independent Media Token. Independent Media Token is a brand new way to show your support for independent media without having to donate a dime. Independent Media Token is a cryptocurrency on the Solana blockchain designed to generate funds to promote and foster the growth of independent content creators, allowing them to engage in their art without having to worry about being demonetized. Through a network of media partners, of which you yourself can become a part of, Independent Media Token's goal is to ensure the powers that be can never cut off all of our areas of funding and censor the only free voices left in the world. Join the movement today. You can pick up Independent Media Token using Phantom Wallet or the Solana wallet of your choice, where you can easily swap your Solana for IMT. Grab some IMT today and remember to always know your team. To learn more, visit independentmediatoken.com or use the link right in the description. If you're looking to start your therapeutic microdosing journey, but don't know where to start, especially when looking for the highest quality ingredients, including nootropics, and what you'd expect from a true microdose capsule, check out our friends at Brainsupreme. They offer the absolute highest quality ingredients so you can start your microdosing journey knowing that you're getting top-notch ingredients. To find out more, visit their website using that link right in the description, and you can get 15% off your entire order. Are you and your family prepared for an emergency? Maybe the fake alien invasion? Now is the time to prepare yourself and your family for any event. Check out Prep Starts Now. Their mission is to provide high-quality preparedness products that empower individuals and families to be ready for any situation. They're committed to delivering reliable, trusted gear to ensure your safety, security, and peace of mind in times of need. Their product selection is carefully curated to provide you with the essential gear you need to stay prepared. From emergency kits to tactical tools, every item is chosen for its reliability and practicality. Prep Starts Now understands the importance of family, and their goal is to equip you with everything you need to build a solid plan for your family's preparedness. In today's ever-changing world, being prepared is more important than ever, and Prep Starts Now is here to help you and your family stay ready with quality products and practical guidance. Use the link in the description and get 15% off your order. We live in an incredible age of information. More and more, we're discovering that we've been lied to and misled about much of our human history. Cory Hughes is providing profound revelations about World War I, World War II, the JFK assassination, Martin Luther King's assassination, and much, much more on his new Substack, Bloody History. Subscribe now for as little as $5 monthly. Just click that link right in the description to get started now and learn about our true history.